On November 8, 2016, India invalidated 500 and 1000 notes, which made up around 86% of the total currency in circulation. This move aimed to fight black money, corruption, and put India towards a digital Indian economy. But from a macroeconomic perspective, let us understand that it actually strengthened the Indian economy or it actually created a shock. At that time, India's GDP growth was around 8%. We are talking about 2015 to 16 period. Cash dominated nearly 90% of the transactions. Informal sector contributed about 45% of the GDP and 80 to 85% of the employment. So, demonetization obviously directly impacted the core of India's economic structure. So, let's first look at the pros of demonetization. First was banking liquidity surge. 15.3 lakh crore out of 15.4 lakh crore returned to the banks, which was about 99.3%. CASA deposits in banks surged significantly. As a result, banks reduced lending rates, increased credit availability, and it impacted investment and economic growth. Overall GDP. Digital payments boom. Second pro. UPI transaction, which was 2000 in 2016, it was about zero point 0.1 million per month. It increased up to 10 plus billion per month in 2023. The cashless economy accelerated dramatically. The talking about the macroeconomic impact, better transactional efficiency, higher tax compliance. Increase in tax base is the third uh, thing that happened because of demonetization. Income tax returns filed increased from 3.8 crore to 6.8 crore from 2014 to 2022, and more people entered into the formal system. And government revenue increased, fiscal strengthened. Now let us look at the cons. GDP growth declined from 8.2% in 2016. It fell down to 6.1% in 2017. Because of this demonetization, there was a shock to both demand side and supply side. So consumption and production both dropped. And because of fall in aggregate demand, everything else just got a shock. Informal sector also got a shock. Cash dependent sectors such as agriculture, MSME sectors, daily wage jobs hit the hardest. Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMIE, 1.5 million jobs were lost in early 2017. There was a severe disruption in employment. Macro impact was rise in unemployment and inequality. And the claims were made that because of demonetization, there would be a great impact on black money. But since 99.3% cash returned, only very little black cash was destroyed, and it shows that black money on black cash, it was mostly held in real estate, gold, offshore assets, etc. Then higher economic cost. Government had to pay a higher economic cost because of this demonetization. RBI spent heavily on printing new currency. Productivity lost, long queues, and halted business, and it reduced the economic efficiency. Now we have seen short-term cons and short-term pros of both. Now, let us look at an overall macroeconomic view. So, for short term, there was a negative supply shock as well as negative demand shock. Consumption decreased, GDP growth decreased, and unemployment increased. Now, looking at the long term effects, digital economy increased, financial inclusion increased, and tax compliance increased. It was a very bold macroeconomic experiment, and it was not just a policy. It exposed how dependent India was on cash at that time, and also it gave a push to India to shift to a digital economy more. It also showed that one of the thing that has not talked about mostly is that structural reforms must be carefully timed to avoid economic shocks, because although the plans had good intentions, but the execution had a few major lags. It can be seen as a contractionary monetary shock in short run, while intended structural reform in long run.